The Russian statement also said you spoke about the ways that the United States would exert pressure on rebel groups to separate themselves from Nusra. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, I don't honestly. I'm fairly aware that that came up in the call today. I'm fairly certain, rather, not aware. But that's been an ongoing commitment of ours, and we've talked about that a lot. Is that it's incumbent on us to exert that kind of influence on the opposition groups on the ground to, not to affiliate themselves with. And we've talked a lot about the intermingling, or however you want to talk about it.
Why haven't you been able to stop that?
It's a challenge, and that's one of the reasons coming out of the ISSG. The language in the communique talked about the fact that if certain opposition groups continue to take part in repeated violations or affiliate themselves with groups that have continually violate the cessation of hostilities, then they run the risk of being excluded from the protection provided by that.
Would you say that Nusra is more embedded with other opposition groups at this point than at any other point in the Civil War?
Boy, I just don't want to make that. I
Can
can't.
Can you name any time at all where you thought, "Ooh, it's even worse than it is now"?
I'll just say that certainly in and around Aleppo, especially, and we've talked about this, is that there is a certain amount of overlap, commingling, whatever the heck you want to call it, among these groups, and it's incumbent on them and absolutely vital that they separate themselves so that we can clearly delineate, where Nusra is and where the credible opposition is.
Do you think as long as they're commingled, Russia should not, and Syria as well, should not strike at Nusra because they should get a free pass or something because they're mixed in with others?
Well, this is part of the ongoing debate. They continue to carry out these strikes, and we continue to say you're hitting opposition forces.
Right.
I would say it's a,
But it sounds like you're admitting as well that you're failing. That's partly your problem.
I would say it's our
haven't been able to
challenge, and we
separate
recognize it's a challenge and we're working to meet and address that challenge.
them. Yeah, but how do you effectively combat Nusra, which is a U.S. designated foreign terrorist organization, if you're saying not to strike them when they mingle with other groups that are involved in the violence?
So a couple thoughts on that. One of the things, or one point is to, what we've seen over the weekend is deliberate attacks in and around Damascus and elsewhere that were targeting, we believe, the opposition as well as civilian populations. And that's another thing. We recognize that, as vile as Nusra is, and as much as they should be targeted legitimately by Russia, by everyone, and they do represent a terrorist organizations, and we do have to be mindful of civilian populations. We do have to be mindful of, frankly, of overlap. But again, it is our challenge, and I accept that.
Strikes. I'm asking about.
Yeah, you're talking about the commingling, yes, or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah,
I'm talking about various militant groups.
I mean, again, ultimately, it's going to be incumbent on these groups to separate themselves, from Nusra. All we can do is deliver that message.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
I haven't heard you mention anything about the attack in Tartus and Lariqiya today. I mean, maybe 200 people. Were
I apologize.
close to it and
I
so on.
apologize. That was in the statement. So we released. I released a statement just before coming in. I'm happy to condemn it from the podium as well. We
Okay,
do
and
strongly.
do you think, in your opinion, that ought to give the regime forces and the Syrian army sort of the leverage to strike back at these at the sources of this terrorism?
Well, again,
Can that be the case like in any other country in the
well,
world?
again, Saeed. So we did obviously strongly condemn Daesh's horrific attacks today in the towns of Tartus, as you noted, and Jabla, which are in the northwest province of Latakia. And I think some 60 civilians were killed in these attacks, multiple bombings, then targeted bus stations and included a hospital. We're obviously going to continue efforts to destroy Daesh in the region. We understand that Daesh represents a threat that is palpable to all in Syria and in Iraq. I think what it highlights, frankly, Saeed, is the urgent need to get a political process moving forward that can resolve the civil war in Syria so that all parties can turn their attention to Daesh and destroying Daesh.
Yeah, but as relates to the point that Brad was raising, I mean, this sort of intermingling and giving them a pause, so to speak, and being targeted and being struck by forces, be it Syrian or Russian and so on, gives them a great deal of latitude to commit to that kind of act. I mean, to move around and be able to have access to towns and villages and so on under regime control and to strike such as this. So why not, in this case, should not, let's say, should not the Syrian regime have the ability to strike and continue striking these groups,
So a couple thoughts on that.
Intermingling notwithstanding.
Sure, a couple thoughts on that. One is we have been working hard, and we've talked about the fact that we beefed up our operation in Geneva in order to provide around-the-clock monitoring of the cessation of hostilities and really look